Awesome. All right, well, let's jump right in. Class is in session. All right, so my name is Nimit Bhatt. I'm the Managing Director of Business Development and Partnerships at memoryBlue, and you are currently in the All Access Academy Pass series. So we just wrapped up a webinar series all about messaging, coaching, and management during the COVID-19 pandemic. But now we're switching gears a little bit. And what we're going to be doing over the next 6 weeks is I'm going to be kind of taking you through a journey here. It's a 6-part webinar series where we're going to be going through each module of our memoryBlue Academy, and specifically the bootcamp part of our academy. So as you can see here, I'm going to be taking you through an introduction, an opening statement, kind of the whole anatomy of a cold call. So we're going to talk about how to open a call, how to ask questions, how to handle common objections, how to close for next steps and for a follow-up meeting. And then we're going to take a step outside of the calls, and we're going to be going over how to build just an awesome call list, how to talk to gatekeepers, and we're going to wrap up the beginning of June with emails and voicemails. So what is memoryBlue Academy? So it's a 6-week immersive training program that we use for all of our new SDRs memoryBlue. So every SDR that we have here at the company and our managers have all been through this academy. It starts with a 2-day boot camp, and that's what we're going to be focusing on over the next 6 weeks is each module that we go over in that 2-day boot camp. It's all about just the techniques. And where our academy differs is after that initial 2-day boot camp, we spend all the remaining time on the actual application of those techniques to make sure that you're using them in the right way. And we do that through call coaching. So each week we spend a session covering each module, and we have our participants, our students, submit a call specifically about that particular module. So if it's introduction, we have them bring a call recording of their introduction, and then we coach them on it, and we walk them through it and talk about what they did right and what they can fix for next time. It's also daily huddles where we cover metrics, successes, and challenges. So this is how we open the call, right? This is the first thing you say after the prospect says hello. This is how you start. This is how you go right into it. And the whole purpose of it is to introduce yourself, right? Say where you're calling from. And you're going to hear this word a lot throughout boot camp, but especially for today, creating curiosity, right? In sales, you can either create confusion or you can create curiosity. And you never want to create confusion. You only want to create curiosity or mystery or intrigue, right? You want to pique their interest, right? So you want to provide them just enough information to create that curiosity and then continue the call. So this is going to be the easiest part of your sales training, right? This is how you want to open the call, right? Hi, Jim. This is Andrew Palmer from Analytics R Us. Did I catch you at a bad time? So let's break this down. So first, you always want to say their first name, right? It's a technique that's called equal business stature. And what that is you want to avoid saying things like Mr., Mrs., Sir, Ma'am. You want to go into it on a first name basis. And it puts yourself almost at the level of the prospect, and it gives yourself a lot more credibility, and it shows that you're supposed to be there, right? You've been there before, right? So hi, Jim. The only exceptions I would say to this is if you are calling in healthcare and you're talking to doctors, I would say Dr. So-and-so. If you're calling into defense, I would say Colonel, General, Captain, what have you. So I would definitely use that. Or if you know that somebody has a PhD and they go by Dr. So-and-so, I mean, a great indication just to look at their LinkedIn and see how it's written there. So those are the exceptions, but the majority of the B2B world, you want to stick to just the first name, right? And then you want to follow up with your full name and the company you're calling from. And then you want to end it with, did I catch you at a bad time? Now, this is a debate that has been happening in sales for millennia, right? How do you finish the introduction? Do you say, did I catch it at a bad time? Do you say, is this a good time? How are you doing today? So our school of thought on this is, again, creating curiosity, right? Did I catch you at a bad time? That is going to be, if you really think about it, there's never really a bad time, right? I mean, if you're calling somebody, they answer. I mean, you got to think about what's going to constitute a bad time versus good time. I don't know if there's ever really a good time for me to receive an uninterrupted, a call that interrupts my day. And then how are you? Again, I think that creates more confusion, right? If this is somebody you've never spoken to before and someone calls me, I don't know who it is, and they start off with, how are you doing today? First, to me, that kind of screams that, all right, that they want something from me, but also it's like, you don't really care how I'm doing today. At the same time, I could be having a really bad day, and you're already kind of started with a little hole dug for yourself. So what we teach is, did it catch you at a bad time, is how you want to finish the introduction, and then you're going to move into your opening statement. So just as a quick checklist, right? Prospect's first name, say your first and last name, the company you're calling from, did it catch you at a bad time? Very straightforward. This is, again, the most straightforward, easiest part of your sales training, is just the introduction. And after the introduction, you're going to segue into your opening statement. All right, so this is the meat of your conversation. This is how you're going to, you're going to tell the prospect why you're calling them, the reason for your call. You're going to tell them a little bit about what you do. You're going to make it super highly relevant, personal to them. And the goal of it, again, is to create that curiosity, pique their interest, and use that as an opportunity to continue the conversation. I'll show you here. This is our template. Okay, so the reason for the call is I've been working in this. This is going to be for Analytics R Us, the made-up data analytics company. Reason for the call is I've been working with other directors of analytics at retail companies like JCPenney, Best Buy, and Sears. They trust to analyze price markdown optimization that's resulted in an increase of as much as $90 million a year in gross margin. We may be able to replicate this for you. How are you currently leveraging data for optimizing price markdowns? So a lot to unpack here. So let's dive in. So you always want to start with the reason for the call. Reason for the call, reason for the call, reason for the call. And this is where this is your first little part where it's personal, right? So you're saying reason for the call, and you're not saying reason for the call is we do this. You're saying reason for the call is I've been working with people just like you. So you want to use their title exactly how it's listed. So rule of thumb, a good practice here is go to their LinkedIn. Look at their LinkedIn and see how their title is written on LinkedIn. If this prospect's title on LinkedIn is analytics director, then I would say I've been working with other analytics directors, right? So you want to make it exactly how they put it. At retail companies, so similar companies, other organizations, right? So the reason for the call, I've been working with other people just like you at companies just like yours. This is what we've done for them. This is your value add. So again, you're saying what you do, but better yet, you're saying this is what we did for these companies. People just like you at companies just like yours, this is what we did for them. And you want to quantify it. Wherever possible, you want to quantify it. You want to put a number to it. People like hearing numbers or statistics. Those things jump out. And again, kind of the non-assumptive language, this is kind of how you can differ yourself from a lot of other salespeople, right? I mean, a lot of salespeople will try to promise you things versus you want to kind of take more of a non-assumptive. Right, we might be able to do this for you, and that's kind of why I'm calling. So why don't you tell me a little bit about how you're doing this today? This is your transition question. It's an open-ended question at the end of your opening statement that's going to kind of guide you into the discovery part of the call, which we're going to be going over next week. Right, so how are you currently leveraging data for your optimizing price markdowns? Most of the time, your transition question at the end of your opening statement is just going to be, how are you doing this today? Let's start there. And based on their answer, you can kind of take it in another direction, right? But just making sure the key there being, it needs to be an open-ended question, right? So a question that isn't a yes or no question. So as a quick checklist here, right? Reason for the call, I work with similar title, work with companies just like yours. If you can name drop companies, as long as they're relevant, this is where you want to put them. The value add, you want to talk about what you've done for them or what you can do for them. Then putting some type of quantification. This is where a lot of our SDRs get hung up because in some cases they don't have that opportunity, and whatever client they're calling for they might not have an actual quantification. And we're going to go into a little bit about what you can do in that case. But talking about whether it's time saved, whether it's money saved, projects completed, some type of quantification related to that value add. Making sure it's non-assumptive, and then again, wrapping that up with an open-ended transition question. And that's kind of your checklist there. So let's talk about some additional scenarios. Not all cold calls are created equal, and they're not all going to go the same way. So there are a couple scenarios we're going to go over here. So what happens if the prospect answers and they don't say their name? If they just say hello? What if the person who answers, you're trying to call Jim Smith and Sally Rogers answers? What do you do in that case? What if you have a referral? You want to open up your call a little bit differently if you have a referral. What if you can't quantify the benefit? We'll go over that. And what if this is a warm call? I know we've talked a lot about cold calls, but let's talk about a warm call. And what if you're calling as a follow-up to an event? How do you take that call? So let's jump in. So if the prospect just says hello, which I can't believe people in the business world even do this, but it happens, right? You're supposed to call Jim Smith and somebody answers and they say hello. So what you want to do here is, hi, Jim. So what happens is I think naturally we like to go to, oh, is this Jim? And that's fine. That's the human instinct. And a lot of our SDRs do that initially. But what we say is, don't do that. Instead, go, hi, Jim. What that does is it shows credibility. It shows that you've been there before, and it creates a curiosity, right? It doesn't create confusion, and it shows that you're supposed to be that you've been there before. Hi, Jim. It kind of catches them off guard a little bit versus, is this Jim? Right? That then they kind of know, all right, this person's never really called this number before. They haven't spoken to me before. And then you go right in. And then you go right into, hi, Jim. This is Andrew from Analytics RS. Did I catch you at that time? All right, so go right into your introduction. If it's not the prospect, if you call and somebody else answers, and they just say hello, saying, hi, Jim. Oh no, this isn't Jim. This is Mark. Okay, I was reaching out to Jim Smith as the director of analytics. Did you take his place? All right. So again, saying the hi instead of the is this. Saying the title exactly, and then asking if they, did you take his place? Something you can think about here is if you have a direct phone number, like if it wasn't through a phone tree, if you have a direct line to somebody and they don't answer, somebody else answers at that number, there's a pretty good chance they might have been replaced. A lot of people don't update their LinkedIn's right away, so it could have been fairly recent. So just, this is a good opportunity to say, oh, did you take his place, and see what happens. He might say, yeah, actually I did, or actually, no, I'm just filling in for him for the week because he's on vacation. It's just a good opportunity. And then you can kind of go into your opening statement from there, depending on what they say. So referral. So this is a big one. This is a big one. So rule of thumb, if you talk to a prospect and they refer you to somebody else, the very next phone call you make is going to be to that person. Even if the prospect you spoke to said, oh, actually, that's not going to be me. That's going to be Sally who handles that, but she's actually on vacation for the week. She'll be back next week. Even if that's the case, you want to call and you want to leave a voicemail in that case. But the very next phone call you want to make is to that referral. And what's going to be different about this is even before, so instead of tweaking your opening statement, you're going to tweak your introduction in this case. So I think a lot of times what we see is, our SDR saying, hi, this is so-and-so from Analytics RS. Did I catch you at a bad time? And then going into the referral. But instead, you want to do that before, because, the referral is going to ultimately determine whether it's a bad time or not. Right. So this is going to be, hi, Jim. This is Andrew Palmer from Analytics RS. I just spoke with Diane Carrollton, and she mentioned you'd be the best person to speak with regarding our data analytics projects. Did I catch you at a bad time? If I got a phone call, so I report directly to our co-founders. If I got a phone call saying, hey, I just got the phone with Mark Gagne, and he said that you'd be the best person to talk to about, XYZ, did I catch you at a bad time? I'm going to be more receptive to saying, oh, actually, yeah, I have a quick minute. Or, oh, yeah, you just talked to Mark? Yeah, what did he say? As long as you actually did have that conversation, which I'll talk about that in a second. So again, saying the full name of the person you spoke to, and then saying she mentioned you'd be the best person to speak with, right? That's huge, right? You'd be the best person to speak with regarding your analytics projects. It makes the prospect feel important. Makes them feel like, oh, okay, oh, she said that. All right, yeah, let's talk. And then going into catch you at a bad time. So what's important about this is you want to make sure you actually had the conversation with somebody. You don't ever want to lie. We never encourage that at all. I had an SDR a few years ago who did kind of lie on a call. I mean, they called a prospect and said, they looked up the prospect, looked up who that person reports to, and they said they actually had a conversation. Say, hi, Jim. This is Andrew Palmer from Analytics RS. I just spoke with Don Carrollton. Well, it turns out that person's boss had recently passed away. And that conversation turned awkward very, very quickly. So that's just a a lesson for everybody out there is when it comes to referrals, make sure you actually have a conversation with somebody that actually referred you to that person before you leverage that referral. And then, of course, using opportunity to say what you do and help with. All right, so if you can't quantify the benefit, so this is an opening statement for a client we had. It was a network security company. They had recently kind of pivoted their market to schools, and they wanted to provide app monitoring, cloud application monitoring for school districts. So what we did in that case is they didn't have any referenceable customers at the time because this was a new vertical that they were going into. So instead, what we did is we took an industry statistic and we put that into our opening statement. We found that over 40% of data breaches occur through cloud application usage by students. And by using that, it puts it into quantification in a little bit different way. It doesn't say anything about what we do, but this is what the industry says. And numbers like that can kind of pique someone's interest. It can perk someone's ears up. So you can throw in those types of statistics. I mean, more likely than not, your solution exists to solve a problem, and you have some type of statistic about that problem. Whether it's your own research or research that you've seen other companies make, you can throw those statistics in there and use that as an opportunity to kind of pique their interest and to continue that call. So warm calls. So following up on a webinar. So we have a lot of clients that have done this, especially now. There's a huge spike in webinars. A bunch of you are on one right now. So reason for the calls, I saw you attended a webinar we hosted last week on trends in next generation data management. Does that ring a bell? Great. What sparked your interest in attending? So giving some type of timeline. People are very busy. Prospects are very busy. They have a lot of things on their plate. So if you can kind of narrow it down to a timeline, it doesn't have to be exact day. I mean, you can say last Thursday, but I always like kind of keep it a little more vague, a little more conversational. I saw you attended a webinar we hosted last week on trends in next generation data management. So actually saying the name of the webinar, and then does that ring a bell? Confirmation of attendance. More often than not, they actually did attend it, but in some cases, you never know. There could be crazy glitches. It could be somebody else in their company using their name. You've kind of seen it all at this point. And then getting that confirmation of attendance, and then great, what sparked your interest in attending? If they say no, I don't know what you're talking about, then you want to just make sure you have something ready of an OS where you can talk about what was discussed in that webinar and what you do. All right, and that open-ended transition question. What sparked your interest in attending? All right, and see what they say. But there's a reason why they signed up. If they downloaded content and you're following up on that, reason for the call, I saw you download a white paper earlier this week on moving from relational to NoSQL. Does that ring a bell? So the name of the actual white paper, right? Throwing that timeline, title, subject of the content. Great, well, wanted to follow up, does that ring a bell? Wanted to follow up is we've helped other companies in the retail space transition to NoSQL. What initiatives do you have in place regarding your database? So the open-ended transition question. Now you see there. So you're making it very, very similar to the OS that we've already covered, just making it more specific to the follow-up on content. All right, so let's listen to a call. So I'm going to go through two calls here, and instead of just showing you a bunch of examples of OSs that are perfect, what we're going to do is we're going to go over two that aren't perfect, that are good, not perfect, and we're actually going to break them down, and we're going to go over kind of what could have been fixed. So let's listen to this call from Tyler. He's one of our SDRs in our Boston office.
Good afternoon. This is Diana.
Hi, Diana. This is Tyler McKeown calling from. Did I catch you at a bad time this evening?
No, what's up?
Awesome. Reason for the call is I work with a lot of people within the HR business at telecom companies, just like you. We help them simplify the recruiting process as well as their HR business needs. I just wanted to reach out to see if you guys have ever looked into automating any aspect of your recruiting process or your HR process.
Awesome. Nice work, Tyler. So
good afternoon. This is Diana.
All right, so this is kind of verbatim what he said. This is the original, and what we're going to do is we're going to break this down. So, hi Diana, this is Tyler McKeown calling from. I took out the company name. Did I catch you at a bad time this evening? So, great. He used the first name of the prospect. He said his name to the company he's calling from. He said, did I catch you at a bad time? The first kind of area he stumbled is that unnecessary filler, right? There's no need to remind them that it's the evening, but you want to avoid any type of unnecessary filler. And I know that kind of can seem it's like nitpicky, but when it comes to learning this and getting good at it and making it repeatable and making like muscle memory, you have to kind of do it the same way. And throwing in an unnecessary filler here only means that you're going to be throwing in unnecessary filler in other parts of your call. And that's just going to hurt your credibility. And it's just going to turn what is only supposed to be 10 words into 20 words. All right, the first area. So, the majority of our SDRs are going to be kind of earlier on in their career, or maybe like right out of college or a couple years out of college. So kind of young, right? Younger in the workforce. And a lot of the prospects we're talking to are going to be, they've been doing it for a long time. You want to show as much credibility as possible, and anything you can do to kind of show that you are credible and you're on kind of the same level as them, you want to do that. And a few ways you can do that are eliminating words that are too casual, like awesome or cool or hey. We actually didn't even go over that, but starting off your introduction, you don't want to say, hey, Diana, you want to say, hi, Diana, right? It just shows kind of a level of maturity. Again, as you get more rapport with somebody, that's when you can start to put some of that in. But on initial call, this is their first impression of you, of the company you're calling from. So you want to be as mature, as credible as possible. So eliminating the awesome or the You can say things like great, reason for the call. Or good to hear, reason for the call. All right, so he said that, it's awesome. So, a lot of people within the HR business, I'm not even really sure what that means, but it's not a specific title. So that's kind of the first area is you want to make sure you put in the actual title of the person. You said telecom companies, referencing similar companies, that's great. There is a value add, simplifying the recruiting process. And unfortunately, he ended it with a close-ended question. You never want to end your introduction saying, hey, I'm reaching out to see if you've ever looked into a solution like ours, right? If that's yes or no, there are ways you can change this to make it open-ended, which we're going to go into. So let's go through the checklist. We went over the introduction checklist, went over the opening statement checklist. So did he use the prospect's first name? Did he use his first and last name? Yes. Did he reference his company? Yes. Did he say that to catch you at a bad time? I mean, yes, he did, but he also added this evening, right? So I'll kind of give him the X on that one, even though it's mostly right. He stated a reason for the call. He didn't say anything about the title. He said a lot of people in the HR business work with similar company. Yes, he said telecom companies. There was a value add. There was no quantification. There's nothing about time saved, money saved, project. There's nothing in there. There's nothing non-assumptive, and he didn't end it with a transition, open-ended transition question. It was a closed-ended, have you looked into? So let's fix this. So this is kind of the fixed version. Hi, Diana, this is Tyler McEwen calling from. Did it catch you at a bad time? Perfect, took out that filler. Great, instead of awesome. The reason for the call is I work with other HR leaders at telecom companies to help simplify the recruiting process and speed up the candidate process as much as 10x. Based on how you're currently tracking your candidates now, we may be able to replicate this for you. How are you currently using automation in your recruiting process? So there was reason for the call. There was HR leaders, right? It's making a title to them. To telecom companies, that was already there. The value add and the quantification, the 10x. There's the non-assumptive, based on how you're tracking your candidates now, we may be able to replicate this for you. And then ending with, how are you currently using automation in your recruiting process? Talking about the current situation, that's your transition question. That's going to lead right into your opening statement. So let's listen to another call here. This is Jack out of our HQ in Tysons, Virginia. Let's listen to his.
Hi, Kathleen. This is Jack Haynes with. Did I catch you at a bad time, or do you have a minute?
Yeah, sure.
Great. So the reason for the call is, I figured as annual fund coordinator, you'd be the best person to speak with about a platform for researching and identifying over 9 million potential donors. We may be able to do something similar for you, but I was just calling to ask, what is your current process for donor research currently?
Awesome. Nice work, Jack.
Hi, Kathleen.
All right. So this is the original. So let's break this down. So he says the prospect's first name. Awesome. Says his name, his full name, company he's calling from. He did a catch at a bad time, but as you kind of sense a common theme here, being a little picky about it, but having the unnecessary filler at the end. You don't want to give them options. You just want to give them one option. Did they catch you at a bad time, or do you have a minute? All right. So again, I mean, is this going to derail your call? No, but it's more for habit forming and for kind of making this as natural as possible as muscle memory throughout your time. You're gonna have a lot of conversations. This is just a good way to kind of use a little bit of discipline when doing this. He used great, which is good, right? He didn't use awesome or cool. Reason for the call. So this is kind of where it fell apart a little bit, right? So this is a lot of words to be used when he's just trying to say, I work with people just like you. So saying something, I figured as annual fund coordinator. I mean, there's a better way to say it. So this is good, a platform for researchers and identifying 9 million potential donors. So throwing a number into the quantification. He did use, we may be able to do something similar for you. You want to, again, this is more necessarily feel like I was just calling to ask you, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And that's 10 extra words that don't need to be in there. And I love it. He ended it with an open-ended question. Open-ended question about the current situation, and that's going to lead to the conversation. So let's go through our handy-dandy checklist. So, yes, he said the prospect's first name. He said his own first and last name. He said the company he's calling from. He said, did it catch at a bad time, but he added do you have a minute? He said a reason for the call. This is kind of where, right? I mean, he used a lot of words. He said, I figured you'd be the right person. He didn't say, I work with companies just like yours or organizations like yours. He did have the value add. He had the quantification. It was non-assumptive. And so, he struggled in the first half, but he closed the game strong in the second half with all those check marks. So let's fix this. So hi, Kathleen. This is Jack Haynes with, did I catch you at a bad time? Perfect. Cleaned up exactly how you wanted to do it. Starts off good. Great. So reason for the call. And this is where you go into, I've been working with other annual fund coordinators, right? He knows that's her title. Title's annual fund coordinators. I didn't mention it earlier. You couldn't get it from the call. He was calling a symphony orchestra. So I want to throw that in there. I've worked with other annual fund coordinators for other symphony orchestras to provide a platform for researching and identifying over 9 million potential donors. So keeping that value add, keeping that quantification. We've uncovered hundreds of thousands of dollars of new donations for other organizations, and we may be able to do something similar for you. So it's even more quantification, and right, and that's a number that's going to stick out. How are you currently identifying new donors and keeping it open-ended? So kind of a fixed version of it. And I think, hopefully you're starting to see kind of a pattern here of how we want, how you want to open up your call and how you want to be as brief as possible and provide that curiosity, create that curiosity. So key takeaways. Intro and OS is kind of the quickest part. I mean, that's where it's very, very straightforward and you can just plug and play. So you want to keep it professional, equal business stature, wherever possible. You want to stay away. I mean, I get cold calls from, I actually had I had somebody cold call me once and say, that's what's up. And that was one of the most satisfying hangups I've ever in my career. So did it catch you at a bad time? And then silence. Did it catch you at a bad time? Wait for them to say something. Wait for them to tell you. Be specific with their title. Say it exactly how it's written on LinkedIn. It's Director of Analytics or Analytics Director. You're going to reference similar companies. And so what's interesting about this, and we want to keep in mind is, it's good to mention companies where you can, but just be careful. Make sure they're relevant. I've seen some opening statements where, hey, it's cool you've done work with Microsoft and IBM, but if you're calling, a fleet of car dealerships, they're not going to really care that you've worked with those companies. You want to make it as specific to them as possible. You want to be careful too. If you're calling into maybe a mid-market or maybe commercial, you don't want to reference enterprise clients. If you're calling SMB, you don't want to mention, really large companies that you've worked with because it's impressive, sure, but it can also, if you say, hey, we've done work with Amazon, then, it can kind of put in the prospect's mind that, all right, you must be expensive then if Amazon's working for you. You're not cheap and we're not Amazon. So you just want to be careful of doing things like that with referencing similar companies. But if you have it, if you have companies that are very similar to theirs, then go for it, drop it. It works really well in enterprise as well. Of course, if we see with a lot of our cyber clients, they don't want to say the companies they work with, that's completely fine. You can just say industries, or you can say, we've worked with other Fortune 500 companies if you're calling a Fortune 500 company. you want to add value and you want to quantify it whenever possible. People love hearing numbers. Numbers make their ears perk up. So you want to use those as much as possible. And you want to end with an open-ended transition question. So cool. All right. Questions. Let's see here. All right. So we got one question here about, let's see here. Okay. Yeah. So I think this person probably missed the earlier part of it. So yeah. So you always want to say a first name basis, but yes, if you are calling somebody that goes by doctor, if you actually are calling like a medical doctor, you want to say doctor. If you see on the LinkedIn that they're PhD, or you can look up articles that have maybe if there's been an article that they've been referenced in, how that person references them, you can use that as kind of an indicator. If you get someone's voicemail, but then if you're calling into defense, you want to say things like general, captain, major, things like that. And another question about calling to get someone to come to your webinar. That's a really good one. We didn't cover that. We just talked about the follow-up. So again, that's all about driving value, right? If you're doing a webinar, let's say, for example, where you're bringing on a customer of yours to talk about best practices and how they're using your solution, especially maybe even if as it relates to the current climate, then you want to drive that value. So your reason for the call is we're hosting a webinar with one of our customers, GE, and they're going to be talking about how they're leveraging our network security solution as their employees migrate to working from home. So using that, and then talking about seeing if they'd be interested in attending it, and then seeing if they ask any other follow-up questions or anything like that, and taking the call that way. And when we talk about discovery next week, that'll make a little more sense. So again, this is a 6-part webinar series. You can come back same time, same place next week, and we're going to go over the discovery. So this is probably my favorite. This is my favorite thing to teach, is to how to start asking questions, how to really get into it with the prospect and qualify and dig for pain. And that's going to be a really awesome session. And then we're going to talk about objections. We're going to talk about the most common objections that you're going to run into and how to handle those, how to combat those. And then closing, how to close for next steps. Then list building, gatekeepers, emails, voicemails. So we're done. On to the next one. So for additional content, as always, the content train is going to keep on chugging along. I have a podcast, the Sales Minute with Nimit Podcast, accompanied by videos on LinkedIn. Wherever you get your podcast, new episodes on Monday. I've got an awesome one coming up next week and the following week. And then we have the Tech Sales is for Hustlers podcast. New episodes every Thursday. Our two co-founders, Mark and Chris, they sit down with memoryBlue alums. So, people that have come through memoryBlue who are off doing amazing things in the world of sales. New episodes every Thursday. And with that, I will see you all next week. Thanks so much for being here.